Major part of Thanksgiving is getting the vegetables right. I get so many questions about it.
How do I know what kind of vegetables to cook? My mom used to do vegetables boiled and pureed. How many should I do?
Where do you start? My answer is to make 2 vegetables, 1 star dish, and 1 that has a supporting role. Here are some easy ideas for the simpler vegetable. French string beans always work. You prep them in advance, keep them in the fridge, and then on the day, you blanch them for just 2 minutes and then toss them in butter. Delicious. Or carrots. Cut diagonally the day before, and then on the day, drizzle with olive oil, salt and pepper, roast at 400 degrees for 30 minutes, and serve with lots of chopped parsley. Something else that's delicious is roasted butternut squash. Olive oil, salt and pepper, 400 degrees, 45 minutes, and drizzled with maple syrup. How bad can that be? So those are ideas for the supporting vegetable. Now for the main event. There used to be a time when I thought everything I made had to be fantastic. And I've really found that it's much better if you have a lot of vegetables for one to be a star and everything else to have a supporting role. The celery root and apple puree is definitely the star. So I'm going to start with fennel. Most people know what fennel is by now. It's in most grocery stores. It has an anise flavor, sort of a licorice flavor. I have to say, I'm not that crazy about it raw. It's very sort of strong, but when it's cooked with butter and other vegetables, it's so delicious. So I need about a cup of chopped fennel, big chop, because we're going to cook it and then puree it. And I've got the butter going. I've got about a quarter pound of melted butter. I'm just going to put the fennel right in. Since this has a really complex flavor, I'm going to put in 3 golden delicious apples and some Yukon Gold potato, about 8 ounces. Yukon Gold's great. It's got a really great texture. And then the last thing I'm going to do is a celery root. This is one of the ugliest looking vegetables, but so delicious. It's also called celeriac. And I need about 2 cups chopped. This is the trick to celery root. Cut off the end and then stand it up before you peel it. And it's really stable, so you won't end up with a trip to the hospital while you're making dinner. Okay, and then cut it in half. And then cut it in 3/4-inch chunks. Fabulous. Okay, now for some seasoning. 1½ teaspoons of salt. Salt's really important. Really brings out the flavor of all the vegetables and the apples. 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. Give it a little heat. I'll adjust the seasonings later. Give it a big stir. It's going to cook in the butter for about 5 to 7 minutes until the vegetables and the apples start to soften. I can already smell them. Okay, now I'm going to add even more flavor. 1/2 cup of apple cider. You know, a lot of my cooking really is about adding flavor to things, not some flavor that you have to go to India for, but just really traditional things like celery root and apples together. So instead of adding water, I'm adding apple cider. These are starting to look great. Okay, I'm going to put the lid on. And simmer the vegetables for about 30 to 40 minutes, low heat. Actually, I take it a little bit off the burner, so it really simmers away. Lid on, done. Now I'm going to use my all-time favorite piece of equipment. It's a food mill. Every French housewife knows about it. And what it does is puree things and gives them great texture, as opposed to like a blender or food processor where it's completely smooth. This is going to have wonderful, wonderful texture. Oh, the vegetables are all done. The celery root and fennel, apples, little potato. Potato gives it a little thickening, which is great. Now I'm just going to add about 1/4 cup of cream, which is going to give it a really silky kind of texture, a little thickening. Just put it right in. Turn off the heat. And just put all these vegetables right through the food mill. You can do this in a blender, you can do it in a food processor, but I just find they end up being very smooth, kind of like baby food. This one has a coarse blade. It has different kinds of blades, so it can be smoother or coarser. And I really like the coarsest blade. And then what you do is just turn it. No electricity, just a little hand crank. Isn't that great? It's so elegant and simple. Perfect. Okay. More vegetables. This is a great vegetable to make in advance. So all I have to do is reheat it with a little bit of apple cider And my guests think I just whipped it up in the few minutes before they got there. Okay, a little more pureeing. Get my exercise for the day. And just, you'll see at the bottom, just make sure you get all of it. I don't want to waste a drop. Put that together and just, you see, really great texture, wonderful flavors. Just a little taste, make sure it's really good. So delicious. It's very rich without being very creamy. So I'm going to refrigerate it, reheat it tomorrow, and it's going to be the perfect star of the vegetable plate. And the next two things on the Thanksgiving. While the stuffing bakes, spoon the celery root and apple puree into a pot, add a little apple cider or water, and reheat it slowly over low heat.